The massive starship Harmony's Edge floated in the dark space between two solar systems. Inside its metal halls, the most feared warriors in the galaxy prepared for something they had never done before. They were about to meet humans. Commander, Hyo-jin walked through the ship's narrow corridors. Her black hair was tied back in a tight bun, and her dark eyes showed no fear. She wore the blue uniform of the Human Diplomatic Corps, but the scars on her hands told a different story. Before becoming a diplomat, she had been a soldier. Behind her walked Captain Woo-bin, a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes. He commanded the human ship that had brought them here. Next to him was Dr. Yoon-soo, a small woman who studied alien life forms. She carried a tablet full of notes about their hosts. The three humans stopped at a large door made of black metal. Beyond it waited the Vorthak warriors. "Remember," Captain Woo-bin said quietly, "they think we are weak because we come from a death world. They believe only the strongest survive on planets like Earth." Dr. Yoon-soo nodded. "The Vorthak have conquered 43 worlds. They respect only strength and military power. Their leader, war leader Grexith, has never lost a battle." Hyo-jin smiled a little. "Then let's show them what humans are really like." The door opened with a loud hiss. The room beyond was huge and dark. Red lights glowed from the ceiling, making everything look like it was covered in blood. The air smelled like metal and something sharp that made their eyes water. At the center of the room stood the Vorthak warriors. They were monsters. Each one was 8 feet tall with thick black scales that looked like polished stone. Their eyes glowed yellow in the dim light. Sharp teeth filled their mouths and claws like knives grew from their fingers. They wore armor made of dark metal, and weapons hung from their belts. The largest Vorthak stepped forward. This had to be war leader Grexith. His scales were darker than the others, and scars covered his face and arms. When he spoke, his voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "So," he said, "these are the humans from the death world called Earth." The other Vorthak warriors laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "You are smaller than we expected," said another Vorthak. This one had fewer scars and wore the marks of a scout. "I am Scout Prime Veltar. We have heard stories about your world. They say it tries to kill everything that lives on it." Captain Woo-bin stepped forward. "That's true. Earth is not an easy place to live, but we have learned to survive there." War leader Grexith walked closer. Each step made the metal floor shake. "Survival is not enough. The Galactic Council wants us to work together. They say humans can fight alongside Vorthak warriors. But we have conquered worlds while you were still learning to use fire. We know of your victories," Dr. Yoon-soo said. "Your military record is impressive." "Impressive?" The war leader's yellow eyes flashed. "We are the greatest warriors in the galaxy. We eat planets for breakfast and spit out their bones. What can soft humans offer us?" The tension in the room grew thick. The Vorthak warriors moved closer, their claws clicking against their weapons. They were not trying to threaten the humans, but their very presence felt dangerous. Hyo-jin had been quiet. Until now, she looked around the room at the alien warriors, then spoke in a calm voice. "War leader Grexith, you're right. The Vorthak are mighty warriors, but humans have something different to offer." "What?" The war leader's voice was full of doubt. "We would like to share a meal with you." The room became completely silent. The Vorthak warriors looked at each other with confusion. Scout Prime Veltar tilted his large head like a puzzled animal. "A meal?" War leader Grexith repeated. "You want to eat food with us?" "Yes," Hyo-jin said. "On Earth, sharing food is how we show respect and build trust. It's how we make friends and allies." The Vorthak warriors began to laugh again, but this time it sounded more like confusion than mockery. "We do not waste time with food," said another, Vorthak warrior. He was smaller than the others, but his armor showed many battle marks. "I am Battleclaw Morden. We eat only what we need to fight. Food is fuel, nothing more." Dr. Yoon-soo looked at her tablet. "According to our research, Vorthak consume nutrient paste that provides all necessary calories and vitamins. Very efficient. Efficient? Yes, War Leader Grexith said. We do not play games with eating. We are warriors, not farmers. Captain Wubin smiled. But that's exactly why you should try human food. You want to understand what makes us strong enough to survive on a death world? The answer isn't just in our muscles or our weapons, it's in how we live. Hyojin took a step forward. War Leader Grexith, you said humans must prove we can fight alongside Vorthak warriors. I propose a different test. The alien commander's eyes narrowed. What kind of test? Let me prepare a meal for your warriors. Real human food from Earth. If your soldiers are not impressed, then humans will accept support roles in your military. We'll be your mechanics and doctors, nothing more. And if we are impressed? War Leader Grexith asked. Then you accept us as equal warriors and allies. The Vorthak warriors whispered to each other in their harsh language. It sounded like metal scraping against stone. Scout Prime Veltar spoke first. This is strange. You want to prove your warrior spirit by cooking? Yes, Hyojin said simply. War Leader Grexth stared at her for a long moment. His yellow eyes seemed to look right through her. Finally, he nodded. Very well, human. We accept this unusual challenge. But know this, Vorthak warriors are not easily impressed. Your food must be as strong as your spirit claims to be. It will be, Hyojin promised. As the humans prepared to leave the dark room, War Leader Grexith called. After them. Human Commander, what is your name? Hyojin. Commander Hyojin, you have 1 day to prepare this meal. Choose carefully. The future of your species in our alliance depends on what you cook. Hyojin smiled. 1 day will be enough. The door closed behind the humans with a soft hiss. In the corridor outside, Captain Wubin looked worried. Are you sure about this? He asked. Dr. Yunsu was already checking her notes. The Vorthak have very simple taste receptors. They might not be able to appreciate complex flavors. Hyojin's smile grew wider. That's exactly what I'm counting on. They have no idea what they're about to experience. As they walked back to their ship, none of them knew that in the dark room behind them, the Vorthak warriors were already beginning to smell something they had never smelled before. Something that would change everything they thought they knew about humans and about themselves. The test was about to begin. The human ship. New Sol was small compared to the massive Vorthak vessel, but it felt like home. Commander Hyojin walked quickly through its bright corridors, her mind already planning the meal that would determine humanity's future in the Galactic Alliance. Behind her, Captain Wubin and Dr. Yunsu struggled to keep up. The captain looked worried, and the doctor kept checking her tablet with nervous energy. Hyojin, slow down, Captain Wubin called. We need to talk about this. Do you really think food can impress warriors who have conquered half the galaxy? Hyojin stopped at the door to the ship's kitchen. Captain, what did you eat this morning? The question surprised him. What? I had rice and kimchi, some grilled fish. Why? And how did it make you feel? Wubin thought for a moment. Good. Happy, I guess. It reminded me of home. Exactly. Hyojin opened the kitchen door. Food isn't just fuel. It's memory, culture, love. It's everything that makes us human. The kitchen was small but well-equipped. In the corner stood a young man wearing a white apron over his uniform. His hair was messy and flour covered his hands. This was sous chef Jin Ho, Hyojin's assistant. Commander, Jin Ho said, bowing slightly. I heard about the challenge. The whole crew is talking about it. Good. I'll need everyone's help. Hyojin looked around the kitchen. Jin Ho, you served in the Special Forces before you became a cook, right? Yes, ma'am, 3rd Reconnaissance Unit. Perfect. We're going to need military precision for this operation. Hyojin turned to Dr. Yunsu. Doctor, what can you tell me about Vorthak biology? Dr. Yunsu consulted her tablet. Their digestive system is very basic. They process nutrients quickly and efficiently. But here's something interesting. They have taste receptors just like humans. They're just not used to complex flavors. They don't know what they're missing, Jin Ho said with a grin. The kitchen door opened again. A tall woman in a security uniform entered. Lieutenant So Young had short black hair and alert eyes that missed nothing. She was the ship's head of security. "Commander Hyo Jin," she said. "Captain Wu Bin asked me to help with your project." "What do you need?" "Protection," Hyo Jin said simply. "And logistics. This meal is going to be a military operation." So Young nodded. "I understand. What's the plan?" Hyo Jin walked to the center of the kitchen. "We're going to prepare a traditional Korean barbecue feast, but not just any feast. We're going to show these warriors what humans do when we turn survival into art." Dr. Yun-Soo looked confused. "Art? It's just food." "No, doctor. Think about kimchi. What is it really? Fermented vegetables. Cabbage, mostly." "Wrong." Hyo Jin's voice was firm. "Kimchi is what happens when humans refuse to let winter kill them."
"Long ago, our ancestors faced months of cold when nothing would grow. They could have just stored vegetables and eaten them plain. Instead, they found a way to make them better. They turned survival into something delicious." Jinho's eyes lit
up. "Every Korean dish is like that. We took what our hostile world gave us and made it into something beautiful." "Exactly." Hyo Jin began pulling ingredients from the storage units. "The Vorthak see only efficiency. They eat to fuel their bodies. Nothing more. But humans? We eat to fuel our souls." Lieutenant So Young was taking notes. "What do you need from security?" "Crowd control, mainly. Once the cooking starts, the smells are going to spread through both ships. The Vorthak have never experienced anything like this. They might react strongly." Captain Wu Bin frowned. "What kind of reaction are you expecting?" Before Hyo Jin could answer, the ship's communication system crackled to life. War Leader Grexith's voice filled the kitchen, harsh and commanding. "Human. Commander Hyo Jin, are you there?" Hyo Jin pressed the reply button. "I'm here, War Leader. My warriors are curious about this food test. Battleclaw Morden says humans are trying to avoid real combat by cooking instead of fighting. And what do you think?" Hyo Jin asked. There was a pause. "I think any species that survives on a death world has hidden strengths. We will discover what yours are." The communication ended. Jinho whistled softly. No pressure at all. Dr. Yun-Soo looked up from her tablet. "I've been reading about Vorthak culture. They value strength above everything else. Their entire society is built around military conquest. They don't have art, music, or recreational activities. Everything serves the war effort." "That explains a lot," So Young said. "A culture without joy must be a hard place to live." Hyo Jin began arranging ingredients on the counter. "Which is exactly why this will work. They don't know what they're missing because they've never had it. We're about to show them something completely new." The kitchen door slid open again. This time, a thin man in an engineer's uniform entered. His name was Tae Hyun, and his hands were stained with grease. "Commander," he said, "I've been working on modifications to the galley. If you're going to cook for Vorthak warriors, you'll need more heat than our standard equipment can provide." "What did you have in mind?" Hyo Jin asked. "I can reroute power from non-essential systems, give you enough energy to run industrial-grade cooking equipment, but it'll mean dimming the lights in other parts of the ship. Do it," Hyo Jin said without hesitation. As Tae Hyun left to begin his work, another crew member arrived. Corporal Min Seo was young but efficient, with the kind of attention to detail that made her perfect for logistics. "Ma'am," she said, "I've been reviewing our food supplies. We have enough rice and vegetables for a large meal, but protein might be a problem. The Vorthak are carnivores." Hyo Jin thought for a moment. "What about the emergency meat reserves?" "We have enough, but it's all frozen solid. It'll take hours to thaw properly. Then we start now." Hyo Jin turned to address the whole group. "Listen carefully, everyone. This isn't just about cooking. This is about showing the galaxy who humans really are. The Vorthak think we're weak because we come from a death world. They're wrong. We're strong because we come from a death world." Jinho picked up a large knife and tested its edge. "What's our timeline, Commander?" 18 hours until the meal, 6 hours for preparation, 12 for cooking. Hyo-jin began tying her hair back more tightly.
Jin-ho, you're in charge of meat preparation. I want the beef marinated perfectly. Taehyun, get those power modifications done fast. Min-seo, coordinate supply runs between both ships. So-young, monitor Vorthak communications. I want to know
how they're reacting to our preparations. And me? Dr. Yoon-soo asked. Keep studying their biology. I need to know if there's anything that might harm them or any flavors they absolutely can't process. As the team began to move, Hyo-jin felt the familiar rush of a mission beginning. This was exactly like planning a military operation, except instead of weapons and tactics, they were using recipes and cooking techniques. The ship's lights dimmed as Taehyun redirected power to the kitchen. The air began to hum with energy as industrial cooking equipment came online. In the storage bay, Min-seo started the long process of thawing meat that would soon become bulgogi. Through the walls of the ship, they could hear sounds from the Vorthak vessel, voices raised in what might have been argument, heavy footsteps, in corridors. The aliens were clearly discussing this strange human challenge. Dr. Yoon-soo looked up from her research. I'm reading elevated heart rates and stress hormones from the Vorthak. They seem agitated. Good, Hyo-jin said, beginning to chop vegetables with military precision. That means they're thinking. Maybe for the first time in their lives. They're wondering if there's something they don't understand about strength. Jin-ho was working on the other side of the kitchen, his movements smooth and practiced. You know, Commander, there's something poetic about this. We're going to defeat alien warriors with the same tools our grandmothers used. Not defeat, Hyo-jin corrected. Transform. By tomorrow, those warriors will understand that humans don't just survive, we thrive. And we're going to teach them. How? The kitchen filled with the sounds and smells of preparation. Soon, the real cooking would begin. The modified kitchen hummed with power as Commander Hyo-jin and her team began the most important cooking operation in human history. Industrial-grade equipment lined the walls, casting bright light on every surface. The air crackled with energy and purpose. Hyo-jin stood at the central preparation station, her hands moving with the precision of a surgeon. Before her lay thick strips of beef, each one carefully cut to exact specifications. She had done this thousands of times, but never with such stakes. Jin-ho, status report on the marinade, she called without looking up. Soy sauce base is ready. Commander, adding rice wine, garlic, and pear juice now. Jin-ho worked at his own station, measuring ingredients with scientific accuracy. The meat will need at least 4 hours to absorb the flavors properly. Good. Taehyun, how are those modifications holding up? The engineer looked up from a control panel, sweat beading on his forehead. Power systems are stable. You're getting 3 times normal cooking capacity. Just don't ask me to maintain this for more than 12 hours. That's all we need. Hyo-jin moved to the next stage of preparation. Min-seo, what's our supply status? Corporal Min-seo consulted her tablet. All vegetables secured and cleaned. Rice is soaking. Kimchi from the emergency stores is ready for serving. We have enough ingredients for 50 portions. 50? Dr. Yoon-soo looked surprised. There are only 12 Vorthak warriors. Hyo-jin smiled grimly. Trust me, Doctor. Once they taste real food, they're going to want more. The kitchen door slid open and Lieutenant So-young entered with a troubled expression. Commander, we have a situation. The Vorthak are monitoring our activities. They have observation cameras focused on our kitchen. Let them watch. Hyo-jin didn't pause in her work. In fact, that's perfect. They should see how humans approach a challenge. Through the kitchen's reinforced windows, the crew could see into the observation deck of the Vorthak ship. Dark shapes moved behind the glass, alien warriors watching their every move. Some appeared to be taking notes. They think we're crazy, Jin-ho muttered, sliding beef into the marinade. Good, Hyo-jin replied. Crazy is what they call things. They don't understand. Yet, Dr. Yoon-soo had set up a monitoring station in the corner. Her equipment tracked air quality, temperature, and even the chemical composition of cooking vapors. Hyo-jin, something interesting is happening. The ventilation system is carrying our cooking smells into the Vorthak ship. Is that a problem? I don't think so. But their stress readings are changing. Heart rates are increasing, but not in a negative way. It's more like curiosity. Lieutenant So Young activated her communication device. Commander, I'm picking up Vorthak radio chatter. Should I translate? Please. So Young pressed some buttons on her device. The harsh Vorthak language filled the kitchen, followed by the mechanical voice of the translator. What is that smell? Came the translated voice of an unknown Vorthak. I do not know, replied another. It is different. Different how? It makes me want to move closer to the source. So Young switched off the device. They're talking about our cooking smells, Commander. I think they're attracted to them. Hyojin nodded, still working on her preparations. Their species evolved on a harsh world, just like ours. But they chose efficiency over everything else. They forgot that survival can be beautiful. The kitchen temperature was rising as multiple cooking stations operated at full capacity. Tai-hyun had installed additional ventilation, but the heat was still intense. The crew worked with military discipline, each person focused on their assigned task. Jin-ho moved like a dancer as he prepared vegetables, his knife work smooth and rhythmic. Years of military training showed in his posture and precision. Every movement had a purpose. Min-seo coordinated supply deliveries with the efficiency of a logistics officer. She tracked every ingredient, monitored cooking times, and managed the complex schedule that would bring everything together at exactly the right moment. Commander, she called, the kimchi needs to be brought to room temperature, and the rice cookers are reaching capacity. Handle it, Hyojin replied, trust evident in her voice. Dr. Yunsu looked up from her monitors. The Vorthak life signs are becoming more active. I'm reading increased brain activity in areas associated with curiosity and anticipation. They're starting to feel something they've never felt before, Hyojin said. Hunger. Real hunger. Not just the need for fuel. The preparation continued for hours. The humans worked in perfect coordination, like a military unit executing a complex operation. They communicated with hand signals when verbal commands weren't necessary. They anticipated each other's needs and moved with practiced efficiency. But this wasn't just efficiency. There was something else in their movements, joy. Despite the pressure and the stakes, they were enjoying themselves. This was what they did. This was who they were. Through the observation windows, more Vorthak warriors had gathered to watch. Some pressed their faces against the glass, their yellow eyes fixed on the human activities. A few had begun to pace restlessly. So Young, what are they saying now? Hyojin asked. The security officer activated her translator again. This time, the voice belonged to War Leader Grext himself. Sub-Commander Krishal, have you ever experienced anything like this smell? No, War Leader, it is compelling. I find myself thinking about it even when I try not to. Battleclaw Morden, what is your assessment? The humans work like warriors, War Leader. But warriors preparing for what? This makes no sense. Perhaps that is the point, Battleclaw. Perhaps we do not understand humans at all. So Young turned off the translator. I think we're getting to them, Commander. Hyojin had moved to the kimchi station. She opened containers of fermented cabbage that had been aging for months. The sharp, complex smell filled the air immediately. It was tangy, spicy, and utterly unique. Through the windows, they could see the Vorthak warriors stepping back from their observation posts. Several appeared to be discussing something urgently. That got their attention, Jinho observed. Kimchi is our secret weapon, Hyojin agreed. It represents everything that makes human food special. We took vegetables that would rot and turned them into something that gets better with time. We made spoilage into art. Dr. Yunsu was studying her readings with fascination. The Vorthak neural activity just spiked dramatically. I think their brains are trying to process sensory information they've never encountered before. Can they handle it? Physically, yes. Psychologically, I'm not sure. This might be overwhelming for them. Hyojin considered this. Then we'll start them with milder flavors and work up to the stronger ones. We're not trying to hurt them. We're trying to show them something beautiful. The meat had been marinating for 4 hours now. Jinho lifted a piece and examined it, carefully. The marinade had penetrated deep into the fibers, changing the color and texture of the beef. It's ready, Commander. Then let's begin the real cooking. Hyojin moved to the industrial grill that Tai-hyun had powered up. It could reach temperatures that would melt ordinary metal. Everyone positions for final preparation. The crew moved into formation. They had practiced this routine hundreds of times, but never under such circumstances. Each person knew their role perfectly. Jinho took his position at the secondary cooking station. Minseo moved to the plating area. Tae-hyun monitored power levels and equipment status. Dr. Yoon-soo continued tracking Vorthak responses. So-young maintained communication security. Remember, Hyojin called as she placed the first pieces of marinated meat on the screaming hot grill. We're not just cooking, we're showing them who we are. The meat hit the grill with a sound like controlled lightning. Steam rose in perfect clouds, carrying with it an aroma that had never before existed on a starship. It was the smell of Earth, of home, of 10,000 years of human ingenuity turned toward the simple goal of making survival delicious. Through the observation windows, every single Vorthak warrior was now pressed against the glass. Some were making sounds that the translator couldn't interpret. Others appeared to be arguing among themselves. They're fighting over something, So-young reported. What? I think they're arguing about who gets to taste it first. Hyojin smiled as she turned the meat on the grill. The first side was perfectly seared with grill marks that looked like artwork. Then they're already starting to understand. Food isn't just fuel. It's competition, sharing, culture, memory. It's everything that makes life worth living. The real test was about to begin. In a few hours, these alien warriors would taste something that would change their understanding of what it meant to be alive. The humans worked on turning simple ingredients into something magical, transforming survival into art. The galaxy was about to learn what humans really were. The great dining hall of the Harmony's Edge had been transformed. The harsh red lighting was dimmed, replaced by the warm glow of human portable lights. Long tables had been arranged in traditional Korean style, low to the ground with cushions, for seating. The air hummed with tension and anticipation. Commander Hyojin entered the hall carrying the first dishes, followed by her team. Jinho bore platters of perfectly grilled bulgogi, the meat glistening with caramelized marinade. Minseo carried steaming bowls of white rice, each grain perfectly cooked. Tae-hyun managed the portable cooking stations that would keep everything at the proper temperature. The Vorthak warriors were already seated, their massive forms looking awkward on the small cushions. War leader Grexith sat at the head of the main table, his yellow eyes fixed on the approaching humans. His warriors flanked him, 12 of the most feared creatures in the galaxy, now fidgeting like nervous children. Dr. Yoon-soo had positioned herself at a monitoring station, her equipment tracking every vital sign from the alien guests. Lieutenant So-young stood guard near the entrance, though her weapons remained holstered. This was diplomacy, not warfare. War leader Grexeth, Hyojin said formally, bowing slightly. We present to you a traditional meal from Earth. We call it Korean barbecue. The alien commander stared at the dishes being arranged before him. The smells that had been teasing the Vorthak for hours were now concentrated and overwhelming. Several warriors shifted uncomfortably in their seats. It smells intense, Scout Prime, Feltar observed, his voice uncertain. Different from nutrient paste, Battleclaw Morden added. His usual aggressive tone was subdued. Hyojin began explaining each dish as her team arranged them on the tables. This is bulgogi, beef marinated in soy sauce, garlic, and fruit, then grilled over high heat. The meat comes from animals that lived on grass and grain, not artificial feed. She moved to the next platter. These are various banchan, small dishes that complement the main meal. Pickled radish, seasoned spinach, bean sprouts with sesame oil. The Vorthak warriors leaned forward slightly, their powerful senses overwhelmed by the complexity of aromas. Some appeared to be breathing more rapidly than normal. "And this," Hyojin said, lifting the lid from a large ceramic pot, "is kimchi jjigae, kimchi stew." The smell that erupted from the pot was like nothing the Vorthak had ever experienced. It was fermented, spicy, complex, and utterly alien to their understanding of food. Several warriors actually pulled back from the table. "By the void," whispered Sub-Commander Krashal. "What is that smell?" Dr. Yoon-Soo checked her monitors. "Neural activity is off the charts. They're experiencing sensory overload." "Is it harming them?" Hyojin asked quietly. "No, but their brains are working harder than I've ever seen. It's like they're learning a new language." War Leader Grexith raised one massive clawed hand. The hall fell silent. Human Commander Hyojin explained to us how to consume this food. Hyojin sat down at the table, demonstrating proper technique. You take rice in your bowl, add some meat and vegetables, then eat them together. The flavors combine in your mouth to create something greater than the individual parts. She took a bite, chewing thoughtfully, her expression showing genuine pleasure. Food should bring joy, not just nutrition. The Vorthak warriors looked at each other uncertainly. For creatures who had conquered worlds, they seemed remarkably hesitant about trying a simple meal. Battleclaw Morden, the most aggressive of the group, decided to go first. He picked up a piece of bulgogi with his claws, examined it carefully, then placed it in his mouth. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Morden's yellow eyes went wide, his jaw stopped moving. For a moment he sat completely still as if frozen. Then his eyes began to water. "Battleclaw?" War Leader Grexith asked with concern. Morden swallowed slowly. When he spoke, his voice was different, softer, wondering. I do not have words for this. The taste is, how do you describe something that has never existed before?" Other warriors began to try the food. Each reaction was similar: shock, confusion, then a kind of wonder that transformed their fierce expressions into something almost childlike. Scout Prime Veltar tried the kimchi stew. The fermented vegetables and spicy broth hit his alien palate like a revelation. He made a sound that was part growl, part whimper. "This is impossible," he said, tears streaming down his scaled face. "How can spoiled vegetables taste like music?" War Leader Grexith had been watching his warriors' reactions with growing amazement. Finally, he lifted a piece of meat to his mouth and bit down. The greatest warrior in Vorthak history, conqueror of 43 worlds, slayer of countless enemies, stopped eating and began to weep. The silence in the hall was profound. The other Vorthak warriors stared at their leader in shock. They had never seen him show emotion of any kind. "War Leader?" Sub-Commander Kreshal whispered. Grexith swallowed the food and looked directly at Hyojin. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight of realization that changed everything. "We have been fools," he said quietly. "For 10,000 years we have conquered worlds and called ourselves the strongest species in the galaxy. But we never understood what strength really was." He took another bite, his expression mixing pain and joy. "This food, it is not just sustenance. It is love made edible. It is the essence of what makes life worth living." Dr. Yoon-Soo was frantically taking readings. "Their brain chemistry is changing, serotonin and dopamine levels are spiking. They're experiencing genuine happiness, possibly for the first time in their lives." Battleclaw Morden had moved on to trying the pickled vegetables. Each new flavor seemed to unlock something in his consciousness. "Commander Hyojin, how is this possible? These are simple ingredients: meat, vegetables, grain. How do they become this?" "Time," Hyojin replied. "Patience, care, love. The kimchi took months to ferment properly. The meat was marinated for hours. Every step was done with attention to making it better. But why?" asked Sub-Commander Kreshal. "Why spend so much effort on food when nutrient paste provides the same energy?" Jin Ho spoke up from his position near the serving area. Because we're not just trying to survive. We're trying to live. There's a difference. War leader Grexith set down his eating utensils and looked around the table at his warriors. Each one was experiencing flavors, emotions, and sensations they had never known existed. Some were still crying. Others were laughing, a sound never before heard from Vorthak throats. "Humans," he said formally, "we owe you an apology. We thought you were weak because you come from a death world. We believed that survival was simply a matter of being strong enough to fight." He gestured to the food spread before them. "But you did not just survive your hostile world. You transformed it. You took the worst it could give you and made it beautiful. You turned necessity into art." Scout Prime Veltar was carefully tasting each banchan, his expression growing more amazed with every bite. Each dish tells a story. This pickled radish. Someone discovered that vegetables could be preserved this way and made them taste better than fresh ones. The fermentation process, Dr. Yunsu explained, was probably discovered by accident. Vegetables left too long, in salt water, but instead of throwing them away, humans learned to control the process and make it intentional. You took failure and made it into success, War Leader Grexith said slowly. You took spoilage and made it into delicacy. This is not just food. This is alchemy. The meal continued for hours. The Vorthak warriors tried everything, asked questions about every ingredient, and marveled at combinations of flavors they could never have imagined. Their harsh voices softened. Their aggressive postures relaxed. They began to laugh and share stories, something no Vorthak had done in living memory. As the evening progressed, War Leader Grexth made a formal announcement that would change the course of galactic history. "Human Commander Hyojin, your test is complete. You have proven something that no weapon could demonstrate. You have shown us that true strength is not just the ability to destroy, but the ability to create beauty from hardship." He stood, his massive form towering over the table, but his posture was respectful rather than threatening. The Vorthak Empire formally requests alliance with humanity, not as subordinates or superiors, but as equals. We wish to learn from you. We wish to understand how a species can face a hostile universe and respond with this. He gestured to the remains of the feast, to his warriors who were still exploring new flavors with the wonder of children, discovering color for the first time. "Teach us, humans. Teach us how to turn survival into joy." Commander Hyojin stood and bowed formally. "War Leader Grexith, we accept your alliance. And yes, we will teach you. Because that's what sharing a meal really means. It's how we share ourselves." The feast was over, but something much larger was just beginning. 6 months later, the sight that greeted visitors to Vorthak Prime would have been impossible to imagine before the Great Feast, as historians were already calling it. The capital city of the most feared warrior empire in the galaxy now featured something unprecedented: restaurants. Commander Hyojin, now bearing the title of Director of Interspecies Cultural Integration, walked through the busy streets of New Conquest City. Around her, Vorthak warriors went about their daily business, but everything had changed. Instead of the harsh military efficiency that had defined their culture for millennia, there was something new in the air. The smell of cooking food. Small stalls lined the streets, operated by both Vorthak and human cooks working together. The sound of sizzling meat and bubbling stews mixed with the traditional sounds of military drills. Warriors who had once eaten nothing but nutrient paste now carried small containers of kimchi in their combat gear, claiming it made them fight with the fury of Deathworlders. Captain Wubin, now promoted to Admiral of the joint human Vorthak fleet, met Hyojin at the entrance to the new Cultural Exchange Center. His uniform bore both human and Vorthak insignia, symbols of an alliance that had grown stronger than anyone could have predicted. "How are the new students progressing?" he asked as they walked into the building together. "Better than expected," Hyojin replied. War Leader Grexith completed his basic cooking course last week. He can now prepare a simple bulgogi that would make my grandmother proud. The Cultural Exchange Center was a marvel of cooperation between two very different species. Humans taught cooking, art, music, and literature to Vorthak students, while Vorthak instructors shared their knowledge of military strategy, engineering, and survival techniques. The building hummed with activity as former enemies learned from each other. In the main teaching kitchen, they found an extraordinary sight. Sub-Commander Kreschel, whose scales had once been polished for intimidation, now wore a flour-covered apron as he carefully rolled dumpling dough under the patient guidance of Jin Ho, who had become the center's head culinary instructor. Freaking key is patience, Jin Ho was saying. You cannot rush the dough. It needs time to develop the proper texture. Krishal nodded seriously, treating the dumpling lesson with the same intensity he had once brought to battle planning. I understand, Instructor Jin Ho. Like preparing for a siege, proper preparation prevents failure. Exactly, Jin Ho smiled. Cooking is just another kind of warfare, but instead of defeating enemies, we're defeating hunger and bringing joy. Dr. Yunsu had established a research laboratory in the center, where she studied the psychological and biological effects of introducing complex flavors to species that had never experienced them. Her findings were being shared throughout the galaxy, revolutionizing understanding of nutrition and culture. Hayo Jin, she called as they passed her lab. You need to see this data. The Vorthak brain scans show permanent positive changes. Areas associated with creativity and empathy have increased in size since they started eating complex foods. You're saying that food literally changed how they think? Not just how they think, but how they feel. The Vorthak are developing emotional responses they never had before. Battleclaw Morden composed a poem yesterday. A poem about the taste of pickled radish. Through the laboratory windows, they could see Morden himself working in the adjacent garden. The fierce warrior who had once terrorized entire star systems was now carefully tending vegetables, his massive claws gentle as he checked the growth of cabbages that would eventually become kimchi. Lieutenant So Young, now colonel and head of Joint Security Operations, approached with a communication device. Director Hyojin, we're receiving requests from 17 different species to join the cultural exchange program. Word is spreading about what happened here. 17. Admiral Wu Bin looked surprised. The crystalline hegemony wants to learn about human music. The Machine Collective is requesting lessons in the art of imperfection. Apparently, they're fascinated by how humans embrace flaws in handmade items. And the Aquatic Federation wants to understand the concept of comfort food. Hyojin felt a sense of profound satisfaction. What had begun as a desperate attempt to prove human worth had become something much larger, a revolution in how species related to each other. The communication device in So Young's hand crackled to life. War Leader Grexth's voice, now noticeably warmer than it had been 6 months ago, filled the air. Director Hyojin, please report to the council chamber. We have important matters to discuss. The council chamber had been redesigned since the alliance began. The harsh red lighting had been replaced with warm, natural tones. The intimidating throne at the center had been removed in favor of a round table where all participants could sit as equals. And, most remarkably, there was a small kitchen in the corner where tea and light snacks were prepared during long meetings. War Leader Grexth stood as they entered, but his posture was welcoming rather than threatening. His scales had lost their harsh polish, and his eyes held a warmth that would have been impossible 6 months earlier. Scout Prime Veltar and Battleclaw Morden flanked him, both showing similar changes in demeanor. Director, Admiral Grexth said formally, we have received communication from the Galactic Council. They wish to understand what has happened here. How has the Vorthak Empire, known throughout the galaxy for conquest and warfare, become this? He gestured toward a viewing screen that showed the streets outside. Vorthak and humans worked side by side. Children of both species played together. Markets sold fresh ingredients instead of just weapons and armor. They think we have gone soft, Battleclaw Morden said, but his tone held amusement rather than anger. The other warrior species believe we have lost our edge, have we? Admiral Wu Bin asked. Scout Prime Veltar activated a holographic display showing military statistics. Our combat effectiveness has actually increased by 37%. Soldiers who eat real food fight with more creativity and determination. They have something worth fighting for beyond just conquest. But more importantly, war leader Grexith added, we have learned to fight for creation instead of destruction. Our engineering core has designed 17 new types of farming equipment. Our scientists have developed methods to restore damaged ecosystems on conquered worlds. We build now, instead of just tearing down. Hyojin studied the data with growing amazement. You're saying that learning to cook made you better at everything? Not just cooking, Grexith corrected. Learning to find joy in existence. Learning that survival can be beautiful. Learning that strength comes not from taking what others have, but from creating something worth sharing. The war leader moved to the small kitchen and began preparing tea, a skill he had learned from Hyojin herself. His massive claws handled the delicate tea set with surprising grace. The Galactic Council has made a request, he continued as he worked. They want us to host a conference. Representatives from all major civilizations will come here to observe what has happened to the Vorthak Empire. And you agreed? Admiral Wubin asked. We did more than agree. We proposed to feed them all. The implications of this statement hit Hyojin immediately. A galactic conference where every species would be exposed to the same cultural revelation that had transformed the Vorthak. It was an opportunity to change the entire balance of power in the galaxy, not through conquest, but through understanding. How many species are we talking about? She asked. 43 confirmed, with more requesting invitations daily, Scout Prime Veltar replied. Carnivores, herbivores, energy beings, crystalline entities, machine intelligences, each with completely different nutritional needs and cultural backgrounds. It will be the greatest diplomatic challenge in galactic history, Battleclaw Morden observed. How do you feed beings made of living crystal? What do you serve to creatures that exist as pure energy? Hyojin smiled, the same expression she had worn 6 months ago when accepting the original challenge. The same way we fed you. We find out what they need to survive and then we show them how to make it beautiful. War leader Grexith finished preparing the tea and served it to his guests. The simple ceremony had become a ritual of equality and respect between the species. There is one more thing, he said, as they sipped the perfectly brewed tea. The Galactic Council has proposed a new position, Ambassador of Cultural Integration. They want you to serve as the first being to hold this title, with authority to establish cultural exchange programs throughout known space. Me? Hyojin was genuinely surprised. You changed us with a meal, Director. The Council believes you can change the galaxy the same way. They want to make cultural exchange as important as military alliance or trade agreements. Admiral Wubin leaned forward. Think about it, Hyojin. Instead of species meeting only for war or commerce, they could meet to share what makes life worth living. Art, music, food, stories. The things that make us who we are. Through the chamber's windows, the transformed city of New Conquest stretched toward the horizon. Vorthak children played in gardens their warrior parents had planted. Humans and aliens worked together in restaurants that served foods no single species could have imagined alone. When does the conference begin? Hyojin asked. 3 months, War Leader Grexith replied.